The dust kicked up by Jonah's boots settled slowly in the afternoon heat as he approached the weathered cabin. He'd bought it sight unseen from a desperate seller in town, paying cash for a place so remote that most folks forgot it existed. After losing his wife and daughter to scarlet fever 2 winters back, all he wanted was somewhere to disappear. The cabin door hung slightly open, creaking in the wind. Jonah pushed it wider with his rifle barrel and stepped inside. A woman sat at the rough wooden table, her hands wrapped around a tin cup of cold coffee. She didn't flinch when she saw him, just lifted her chin and said quietly, "I suppose you're here to throw me out." Jonah kept his rifle lowered but ready. The woman couldn't have been more than 25, with dark hair pulled back and clothes that had seen better days. Her eyes held a weariness that reminded him of a cornered animal. "This is my cabin," he said, "bought and paid for yesterday. You need to leave." Clara stood slowly, keeping her hands visible. "I've been living here for 3 months. Nobody said anything about selling it. Well, somebody did, and now it's mine." Jonah set his saddlebags on the floor but kept watching her. "Gather your things. I can't leave." Her voice stayed steady, but her knuckles went white as she gripped the table edge. "If I go out there, I'm dead." Jonah had heard plenty of sob stories in his time. Ranch work taught you that everyone had troubles, and most folks dealt with them without hiding in other people's property. But something in her voice made him pause. "Who wants you dead?" "Bartholomew Kane." She said the name like it tasted bitter. "He owns half the valley and wants the other half. This cabin sits on the only water source he doesn't control." Jonah knew the name. Kane ran the biggest cattle operation for 100 miles in any direction. The kind of man who got what he wanted through money or muscle and didn't much care which. "What's that got to do with you?" Clara moved to the window, peering through the cracked glass. "My father owned this land. Kane wanted to buy it, but Papa refused. Then Papa died in what the sheriff called an accident. A horse spooked and trampled him, they said. But Papa had been working horses since before I could walk. No horse ever spooked on him. You're saying Kane killed him? I'm saying Papa died 2 days after refusing to sell. And when I wouldn't sign the papers either, strange things started happening. Fences cut, cattle disappeared. Then Kane's men started showing up at all hours, making threats. She turned from the window. "So I came here. It's the only place they haven't found me yet." Jonah wanted to tell her it wasn't his problem. He'd come here to get away from other people's troubles, not adopt them. But the fear in her eyes was real, and despite himself, he remembered another woman who'd been afraid. His wife, begging him not to leave for that last cattle drive. If he'd stayed home, maybe he could have gotten them to a doctor in time. Maybe they'd still be alive. One night, he heard himself say, "You can stay tonight. Tomorrow you need to move on." Relief flickered across her face. "Thank you." As darkness fell, they sat on opposite sides of the cabin's single room. Clara had made a simple meal from the supplies she'd stored, and they ate in mostly silence. Jonah couldn't help but notice how she jumped at every sound from outside. An owl's hoot made her reach for the knife at her belt. When coyotes howled in the distance, her whole body tensed. "Kane's men don't usually travel at night," she said, seeing him watching her. "But sometimes they do, just to keep me scared." "How long do you plan to hide?" "Until Kane gives up or finds something else he wants more." She stared into the fire. "My father always said this land was special. Not just the water, but something about the soil. Crops grow here, when they fail everywhere else. Kane knows it too." The next morning, Jonah woke to Clara shaking his shoulder. "Riders," she whispered, 3 of them coming from the east. Through the window, he could see the dust cloud approaching. 3 men on horseback, moving with the easy confidence of those who expected no resistance. Clara had already grabbed her few possessions, ready to run. "There's a root cellar," she said. "I can hide there." Jonah surprised himself again. "No, you stay inside, I'll talk to them." He stepped onto the porch as the riders approached. The lead man had the look of hired muscle, with scars on his knuckles and a tied-down holster. "Morning," the man said, though his tone held no friendliness. "We're looking for someone. A woman about year-high dark hair. Seen anyone like that?" "I bought this cabin yesterday," Jonah said. "Haven't seen anyone but jackrabbits and buzzards." The man's eyes narrowed. "Mind if we look around?" "I do mind. This is private property. Mr. Kane owns most of the land around here. He's concerned about a thief who's been hiding in these parts. Just want to make sure she's not troubling you." Jonah kept his hand casual but near his gun. "Like I said, haven't seen anyone. And I don't take kindly to strangers poking around my land." The riders exchanged glances. The leader leaned forward in his saddle. "You're new here, so maybe you don't understand how things work. Mr. Kane is a powerful man. It's better to be his friend than his enemy. I'm not looking to be either. Just want to be left alone." They stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, the leader touched his hat brim. "We'll be around. If you see that woman, Mr. Kane would be grateful to hear about it. Very grateful." After they rode off, Clara emerged from the cabin. "You didn't have to do that." "They'll be back," Jonah said. "And next time they won't ask permission." Over the following days, an uneasy routine developed. Clara helped with repairs to the cabin while keeping watch for riders. Jonah found himself talking more than he had in months, telling her about his life before, the ranch he'd built from nothing, the family he'd lost, the guilt that followed him like a shadow. Clara listened without judgment. She told him about growing up on the land, learning her father's stubbornness and her mother's resilience. She talked about Kane's slow takeover of the valley, buying out families or forcing them to leave. Those who resisted faced accidents or disasters that the sheriff never quite managed to solve. "My father kept records," she said one evening. "Dates, names, everything suspicious that happened. It's all hidden in a strongbox buried near the old oak tree. I've been meaning to get it, but Kane's men are always watching." On the fourth day, while cleaning out an old trunk in the corner, Jonah found a photograph tucked behind a loose board. It showed a group of men at what looked like a celebration. He recognized a younger Bartholomew Kane immediately, but it was the man next to him that made Jonah's blood run cold. Marcus Webb, the doctor who'd refused to come when Jonah's family was dying. Webb had said he was treating injured men at Kane's ranch, men who'd been hurt in what Kane called a necessary action against rustlers. "What is it?" Clara asked, seeing his face. Jonah showed her the photograph. "The night my family died, the only doctor for 50 miles was at Kane's ranch. He was treating Kane's men after they'd burnt out a family named Patterson, killed 2 of them in the fight." His voice went hard. "I always wondered why the doctor wouldn't come. Now I know. He was covering up murder." Clara studied the picture. The Pattersons owned land along Willow Creek. Good water, good grass. Kane owns it now. The puzzle pieces clicked together in Jonah's mind. Kane wasn't just a land grabber. He was a killer who used his wealth and influence to destroy anyone in his way. The same man who'd kept the doctor from saving Jonah's family was now hunting Clara. "We're going to get that strongbox," Jonah said. "Tonight." They retrieved Clara's father's records under cover of darkness. The papers inside detailed years of Kane's crimes, mysterious fires, poisoned wells, and too many accidents to be coincidence. Names, dates, and enough evidence to interest even a territorial marshal. "This is what he's really afraid of," Clara said. "Not me, but what I know." The next morning brought what they'd both been expecting. Bartholomew Kane himself rode up with 6 men. He was older than the photograph, with grey in his beard and cold eyes that had seen too much violence and liked it. "Mr. Jonah Thompson," Kane called out. "I believe we need to talk." Jonah stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. "Nothing to talk about, Kane." "Oh, but there is. You're harboring a thief and a liar. That woman has been spreading stories about me, trying to damage my reputation. From what I hear, your reputation's already plenty damaged." Kane's face darkened. "I'm offering you a choice. Give me the woman and the papers she stole, and I'll pay you double what you paid for this cabin. Refuse, and things will get unpleasant." "Here's my counteroffer," Jonah said. "You and your men turn around and ride out. Don't come back. Clara stays here, and so do the papers." Kane laughed, but there was no humor in it. "7 of us, 1 of you? Those aren't good odds." "Maybe not," Jonah said, "but I know this land now. Every rock, every tree, every blind corner. You might take this cabin, but it'll cost you. And those papers, already sent copies to the territorial marshal. Anything happens to us, he'll get them along with a letter explaining everything." It was a lie, but Kane didn't know that. Jonah could see him calculating, weighing the risks. A man like Kane had survived by choosing his battles carefully. Clara appeared in the doorway, her father's pistol in her hand. "My father died for this land," she said. "I'm prepared to do the same. Are your men, Mr. Kane? Are they ready to die for your greed?" Some of the hired guns shifted uncomfortably in their saddles. They'd signed on for easy money, not a real fight against people with nothing left to lose. Kane's jaw worked like he was chewing something bitter. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Jonah said. "You're done here. Take your men and go. Don't come back." For a moment, violence hung in the air like smoke. Then Kane turned his horse. "Move out," he barked at his men. They watched the riders disappear into the distance. Clara's hand found Jonah's arm, gripping tight. "Will he really leave us alone? Men like Kane are cowards at heart," Jonah said. "He'll find easier prey, And if those papers do make it to the marshal, he'll have bigger problems than us. Over the following weeks they waited for Kane's return, but he never came. Word eventually reached them that he'd pulled up stakes and moved his operation further west, where the law was even thinner and people asked fewer questions. The cabin that had been meant as Jonah's escape became something else entirely. Clara's knowledge of the land helped him work it properly. The soil was as good as she'd promised, and soon they had crops growing where others had failed. Her laughter filled the spaces that had been hollow since he'd lost his family. Not replacing what he'd lost, but building something new alongside the memory. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold, Clara said, "I never thanked you properly for not throwing me out that first day." "You saved me too," Jonah replied. "I came here to hide from life. You reminded me why it's worth living." They worked the land together, building a future neither had expected to find. The cabin grew into a proper home, with additions and improvements that spoke of permanence rather than mere survival. Other settlers, hearing that Kane was gone, began returning to the valley. The community that Kane had tried to destroy slowly reformed, stronger for having survived. The dangerous secret Clara had been hiding turned out to be more than just evidence of crimes. It was proof that even the most powerful men could be defeated by those willing to stand up to them. The isolated cabin Jonah had bought sight unseen became the foundation of a new life, one built on courage, trust, and the understanding that some things are worth fighting for. In the end, they both found what they'd been looking for in that remote cabin. Jonah found redemption and a reason to engage with the world again. Clara found safety and a partner who wouldn't run when things got difficult. Together they transformed a place of hiding into a place of hope. The Old West was full of such stories, where ordinary people faced down extraordinary challenges and emerged victorious not through violence alone but through determination and standing together. Jonah and Clara's story became one of those tales, told in the valley for generations, about the couple who refused to bow to a tyrant and won their freedom through cleverness and courage. If you enjoyed this story of courage and redemption in the Old West, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of adventure and justice. Share in the comments what you would have done in Jonah's place. Would you have helped Clara stand against Kane, or would you have chosen the safer path? Your engagement helps us bring you more stories like this one, where ordinary people become heroes and justice prevails against all odds.